sacrifice, as Krishna explains in the Gita, that if we don't eat food which is offered in sacrifice, then we're eating sin. Because there's two elements. There's bhoga, which means enjoyment, but it's not for us to enjoy, it's for Krishna to enjoy. But if we take bhoga because it's meant for Krishna, it means we're actually engaging in sinful activity. Or we can take Krishna Prasad. And then when we take Krishna Prasad, this is purifying. It helps us to purify our existence. So generally one of the first things that we learn as new devotees, especially as householders or people living outside the temple, is you should offer all your food. That's the very first thing we should do. Now, of course, it doesn't necessarily mean you need to have deities. You can offer all your food at home with simply, you might have some pictures of Krishna. Like you may find it surprising in my service as the deity worship minister. I don't see it as a position, I see it as a service. I don't have deities. At home we've got a picture of them. And there's a really good reason for it. Because Srila Prabhupada encouraged those but still, at home you can have various, you can have, the general thing that Prabhupada would encourage the devotees to have at home is what he would call a Guru Garanga altar. So that means pictures of the Parampara. Of course, here we have Gopal Krishna Maharaj, but then Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Gopal Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Jagannath Das Babaji. And of course, you can have the six Goswamis if you like, and then pictures of Varnitai or the Panchatattva. And because when you have deities, as Baleshwara I'm sure could explain to you, that there's commitment. You have to do the worship every day, and there's no kind of escaping that really. But if you have a picture of the, thank you, just thank you. If you have a picture altar, then there's no obligation of worship. You get all the facility of or all the benefit of doing the deity worship, but without the requirement to do, as Prabhupada explains, there's that song from the Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur called the Grihastha. So the third verse says, Sri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana Sringaratan Mandira Marjanada. So Yuktasya Bhaktam Chani and Jato the Vande Guru Sri Chanyavinda. That it says Sri Vigrahara Dhana Nityanana. So the Vigraha, we worship him Nitya. What does Nitya mean? It means regular. It can mean daily, it can mean always, it can mean regularly. So it has different interpretations. But when in the context of this verse, sort of Prabhupada would always translate it as meaning daily. So it means like when you have a vigraha, like a three-dimensional form of Krishna, it means that you need to do the service every day. So it depends, and that service is going to depend on what deity you have. Say, for instance, here we have Jagannath Baba Subhadra, Baba Gopal, and Shalagram. So explain the different deities. With Shalagram Shila, then basically every day you need to bathe him. You can grab oil before the bath if you like. Then you need to remove the oil, and then you bathe him. Bathing can be very simple, just 3 conches of warm water, like to suit the season. Sometimes you see devotees will bathe the Shalagram with cold water, but take warm baths themselves. So it's not right that you're taking a nice warm bath and Krishna's taking a cold bath, or they might just offer Krishna some popcorn or some fruit and nuts, but they're eating big feasts. It's like whatever you eat, you should offer to Krishna. It's not like he should get the second rate. He should be getting first rate, and we can take his remnants. So if you have a Shalagram, it means like every day you bathe the deity, and you dry the deity, and you offer him tulsi. Usually put the tulsi underneath. You just get tulsi dipped in chandan, put it underneath, and pat it dry with a cloth, and then he sits on tulsi. He always sits on tulsi. And interesting with the Shalagram, most Shalagrams will have what they call a pitta. So pitta is like a flat spot, and that's where he sits. That's the base. And usually the shalagram here that you're worshiping is Machina. He's quite large, but it said that if you get a small one that you can close your hand and hold it inside your hand, this is the perfect size for a shalagram. I'm not suggesting you change your shalagram, by the way. This one's very beautiful. But it's just, there's just different notions there. But usually they have a flat spot on the bottom. This is just Krishna's, he makes that arrangement so it's easy to worship him. And then so, bathe him, offer tulsi and chandan. Prabhupada told Koladri, actually, it wasn't Koladri he told. He sent a shalagram from Mayapur to New Vrindavan with Koladri, and there was a note in it that the shalagram was sent to Radhanath Maharaj. He was the first person to worship shalagram in ISKCON outside of India. And he explained to Maharaj how to bathe the deity. He said, how to serve the deity. He said, you bathe him with water every day, you chant prayers. And he said, first class shalagram worship means tulsi and chandan. And he said, for any more questions, you can ask Janani Vas Prabhu in Mayapur. And so that's you put tulsi on the bottom. And we see also you can offer tulsi with manjaris, tulsi manjaris as well. That's also nice. And then offer him something to eat. Generally, he likes sweets. But you can also offer fruit and things like that. And that's like you'll offer after the bathing, you'll offer chandan. You can put tulsi, some flowers, incense lamp, something to eat, and some prayers. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Sadhuvade Srimati Bhakti prayers like that. Very simple. When you have brass deities like Ladu Gopal, for instance, you need to polish them regularly. Not daily. Daily is not necessary. Once a week or once a fortnight is sufficient. Prabhupada told the devotees in Melbourne that they could polish the deity once a week. That means the face and the body, everything with feedback and lemon juice or something similar, something equivalent that helps the deity shine. And then you'll always bathe him every day, dress him every day, and then also offer him something to eat and an arti. And also shalagram. If you're sitting on a cloth, you should put a fresh cloth there every day. And then also you can wake them in the morning, put them to bed at night if you want to do that. And then with Jagannath is also he's quite simple. You don't need to bathe Jagannath. You just wipe him down with a clean cloth every day, and then put fresh clothes on daily, and then offer him something to eat and have an arti. And kirtan is also good for deities. So home worship can be very simple. It doesn't need to be of the same standard as what you might see in an ISKCON temple. But the idea behind the home worship is to give us a center of focus in the home. And a lot of modern homes you go into, what's the center of focus? Huh? Yeah, the one-eyed guru. Yeah, this thing. In Australia we call it the one-eyed guru. For our bases. But actually, the focus in the house should be Krishna, because this is the point of life. This is what life is for. Jivera Saropa Hoy Krishnana Nityadas. This is the identification of the jiva, is to serve Krishna, not to serve this thing. And I'm sure you don't watch it, it's just there for the kids, right?
The kids are right.
Yeah, you play Krishna things on for the kids, But but you'll find it in modern households. The TV is on from the time they wake up in the morning to the time they go to bed at night. And in some households they never turn it off. It's just on all day even when they're sleeping. And whatever the TV says, they believe it. Buy this, buy that.
Because nowadays every room has a TV now.
Every room has a TV.
Bedroom or kitchen.
Screens everywhere.
But Prabhu, the time I moved to my new place, I have a very big TV when I moved to the place. So it was in every room because I went into a rented place. I never watched TV.
Yeah.
It's just still there.
We had a big TV in our house and we hadn't turned it on for like about 3 or 4 years, and it stopped working. So I was like, had no use for it, the thing is, the purpose of Krishna consciousness, the whole point of life, the human form of life, is to focus our life around the service of Krishna. So deity worship gives us a really nice facility for that, because we wake up in the morning, we bathe, we go offer our obeisances to Krishna. And then we serve Krishna, we bathe Krishna, we dress Krishna, we offer him something to eat. every time we cook something in the house, we bring it, we offer it to Krishna. Whenever like we can sit and read in front of Krishna, we can chant our japa in front. Like Murli Manohar, he lives in London, and his apartment is called Nrishma because he has this form of Nrishmadev there, and so it's Nrishmadeva's apartment. It's not Murli's a guest there. It's in Nrishmadev's home, and so when he sits there and chants his japa, he chants the Nrishmadev. He offers Bholga to Nrishmadev. So the idea is to focus your life around Krishna. Every part of your day is focused around Krishna. And by doing that, what happens is, I was listening to a class before coming here, and Prabhupada was explaining about how even in your sleep, you'll dream about Krishna. And so he said, he was saying the other day when he went to bed, he was feeling hungry in his dreams. He wanted something to eat, so he was eating prasad in his dreams. So the whole thing is like, by focusing your life around Krishna, it comes to the point where 24 hours a day you can't help but think of Krishna. And this is the perfection of Krishna consciousness. Is Prabhupada would say, to mold your life in such a way you cannot help but 24 hours a day think of Krishna. So like when things happen, like sometimes good things happen to us, what do? Thank you, Krishna. Oh, I'm so lucky. We thank Krishna for this windfall. Or when calamities happen to us, it depends. Obviously, it depends on how elevated one's consciousness is. But if we can, become purified and elevate our consciousness sufficiently, that even when calamities happen, it's just like Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He said even the greatest difficulties I saw as the moments of greatest ecstasy. So that even when calamities come, we see there's a gift from Krishna to help us learn how to be a better Vaishnava. So by engaging in deity worship, we can this is an opportunity for us to become more Krishna conscious. And the idea is just like everything we do throughout the day, we just do for the pleasure of Krishna. And it means even you go to work, okay, so I'm sure you all work in IT or something like that. Why do you go to work? Because you like it?
Yeah.
You like work?
Yeah.
But is that the reason you go?
Yeah. I mean, I have a motive of working, so my motive is like because of what I work, I'm able to help a lot of people. Yeah. So I prefer doing a lot of.
What sort of work do you do?
I'm a criminal lawyer.
A criminal lawyer?
Yeah.
Okay.
And right now, I'm doing legal advices and all that. But with that, when I see that someone is happy and someone has got justice, when you see them, with a smile that they were just like, oh God, we don't know what's going to happen in this situation. And when something good happens to them, because something has bad happened to them, we can't do anything about it, but we can fix the situation by giving them positivity, by giving them optimism and fixing the situation.
So this is the mood of a Vaishnava. Is when someone's suffering, they suffer.
Yeah.
When someone's happy, they feel happy.
Yeah.
This is the mood of Vaishnava. But the best thing you can do to make them happy is give them Krishna. Yeah. So it's like, and in that way, you're basing your life around Krishna, and you're helping them to base their life around Krishna. But that doesn't necessarily mean, say for instance with the people you're dealing with, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pull out the Bhagavad Gita and start quoting slokas from the Bhagavad Gita.
No, so Prabhu,
you can give them prasadam.
Yeah.
You can give them a flower. So many things you can do.
Prabhu, what happens now? Because I have been reading Bhagavad Gita since I was 14 years of my age, and my Sanskrit teacher back in India, she told me that. So she was really after. She was a school teacher. So she was really after us. Then when we gave our exam in 10th grade, she told us that the only Guru Dakshina I want, that every one of you need to keep Bhagavad Gita with you.
Yeah.
And since then, we have such a habit of reading Universal chapter, 11th chapter, and reading them. Because of we used to read 11th chapter, we used to get up on the 4th chapter, 3rd chapter, just out of curiosity. And the connection which we had, all we school friends, till now we have. So whenever we talk to someone, we refer Krishna in our talks. Krishna has said this, so it itself comes up. We don't want it intentionally, we don't do it, but unconsciously, unintentionally, it comes up.
Yeah.
That it shows, yeah, Krishna has said that.
See, and this is the real point of the human form of life, is to center your life around service to Krishna, and to inspire others, to guide others to center their life around the service of Krishna. And it's just like, the point I was going towards before was oftentimes we see that people, when they're working stuff like that, they kind of feel like, in one sense, the work is like contradictory to their devotional life. But if you can see how everything is connected to Krishna, then it's not contradictory. We're doing a program tomorrow night in Edinburgh, and the topic we've been asked to speak about it is Grihastha life in Krishna consciousness. And so the verse I was thinking of referring to there was this verse from the last chapter, where Krishna says, Yat karosi yadasnasi yat juhosi yat pasha shikanteya tat purusha madapana. He's saying, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer, give away, whatever austerities you perform, you do that as some offering to me. So the idea is like, even like, okay, so you may be working your 9 to 5 job, whatever it is, and you like your job. Others may not like their job. It depends. But if you see that job, or if somehow or other you make that the connection between the work you're doing, the service you're doing there, and Krishna, then it changes the whole perspective. If you make that connection. And so if we can see, okay, we're working, what's the point of working? It's so I can, just like we look at, has everyone here read Lila Amrita? Lila Amrita. Has anyone read Lila Amrita? Prabhupada Lila Amrita, yeah. Very interesting story. We see that the first section is called Lifetime in Preparation. And in that section, Prabhupada is talking about his father, Gaur Mohan Dev. And Prabhupada would sometimes as a child wake up and see that his father, he'd wake up early in the morning and he'd worship his Radha Krishna deities. Then he'd go to work in the morning and do his business. Then he'd come home for lunch, he'd bathe and he'd worship the deities. Then he'd go back to work and he'd come back in the evening and worship the deities. And he said actually his real business was worshiping the deities. But he did the work just to maintain that. So if we can somehow or other connect everything to Krishna, it doesn't, as Krishna said, whatever yat karoshi means whatever you do that as an offering to Krishna. So okay, you're working, you might drive a taxi, whatever it is you do, you just see how that's, you just connect that to Krishna. And you do it for Krishna's pleasure. You do it, and when you look at it like that, when you try to look at things like that, it takes on a whole broader perspective of not just the act of work, but how you function when you're at work. Just like I'm sure that some of you have had the experience of some of your work colleagues might not be very friendly, or they might be very ambitious, or they might have negative attitudes. But as devotees of Krishna, we can't take on that same kind of attitude, because then how do we connect that with Krishna? We have to see that, like, well, I can't do this, I can't be negative towards someone else and say that's Krishna conscious. So it means when we go to work, we need to exhibit positive behavior, positive attitudes, like Krishna conscious attitudes. And what that has a very positive effect also, because when others see that you're, even, I have so many times, it's like, where I'm dealing with non-devotees, and they say things like, I never see you get disturbed, you're always peaceful no matter what's happening. And so this is a segue to present Krishna consciousness. Because I'll ask you, why are you always so peaceful? I've had this happen so many times. And I say, well, it's usually because I chant Hare Krishna, or because I'm a devotee of Krishna, I'm a vegetarian, or you have to look at the person you're talking to for what they're willing to digest. But bare minimum you can say, well, it's because I'm a vegetarian. Oh, why are you a vegetarian? Oh, because I'm a devotee of Krishna. So it opens up so many avenues for presenting Krishna consciousness, and that comes about just by the conduct. Because yad karoshi, whatever you do it for Krishna. And so whatever you eat, yad karoshi, yajnashti, do it for Krishna. So it means like, whatever you eat, you're doing for Krishna. So Krishna says, Patram pushpam parantoyam yoga bhakti prachati, taraham bhakti asami. If one wants to be love and devotion, leave a flower, fruit, or water. It doesn't talk about tea, coffee, cigarettes, alcohol, meat, fish, eggs, and it doesn't talk about any of that sort of stuff. So it means that if we're going to eat for Krishna's pleasure, we eat vegetables, grains, fruits, all that sort of stuff, milk products. That's for Krishna's pleasure. That is yajjahosi, whatever austerities you perform. So sometimes we perform. Sometimes you'll see, like tomorrow's Ekadashi. So we follow Ekadashi for Krishna's pleasure. So we come, because Ekadashi sometimes. What do they say about Ekadashi? Because Tulsi is the Bhakti Pradhani, but Ekadashi is the mother of devotion. Yeah? So by following Ekadashi, this is a very, very powerful tapasya, if you like, because on Ekadashi we don't eat any type of grains or beans, and and especially in Kali Yuga, for a vegetarian, they get their strength from grains and beans. So to follow Ekadashi, it's a tapasya we perform for Krishna's pleasure. Or we have Janmashtami. We use on Janmashtami fasting from midnight. I don't long fast anymore because I get sick. I get like really bad headaches as a result and just feel really unwell. So I usually fast half the day or till the evening and then have something to eat. I can't fast up to midnight anymore. But we follow these observances for Krishna's pleasure. It's not like some people that they'll have. I think there's a fad out now. It's actually called intermittent fasting. Where people will just randomly fast for health. But that's not going to bring you closer to Krishna. It may help your body become healthy, but it's not going to bring you closer to Krishna. But if you do it for Krishna, you'll get the material benefit of fasting, but also you get the spiritual benefit because you're doing it for Krishna. If you're doing it for the body, the result is you become more entangled. As Krishna, he declares at the end of the 3rd chapter, he says, the work that is a sacrifice of Vishnu must be performed. Otherwise, work will cause bondage. So if you do it for Krishna, it's liberating. If you do it for health, if you do it for whatever, for some material reason, karma bandhana, it causes you to be bound up in this material world. So this is the point that Krishna is making, that whatever you do it for him. And in this way, the very next verse in the 9th chapter is Subha Evam, Moksha Se Kama Bandhana, Sannyasa Yoga. What was it? I forgot which line it says. People kill them all graciously. Always forget the last word of the 3rd line. He says, in this way, with your mind fixed on me, in this principle of renunciation, you'll be you'll overcome all the activity results of auspicious and inauspicious works. With mind fixed on me, this principle of renunciation, you'll be liberated, and thus you'll come to me. So by doing everything for Krishna, because what happens, as I was saying, we see from the verse in the 3rd chapter, you act in this world, you do it for yourself, you become entangled. But Krishna's explaining in the 9th chapter, if you do it for him, then you'll overcome the reaction to good and bad activities, and you'll be liberated when you come to him. So deity worship, it gives us this opportunity to, whatever we're doing in the home, we do it for Krishna. We do it for his pleasure. And this then has the benefit of freeing us from the resultant reactions and bondage that comes with activity in the material world, and enables us to become liberated from this entanglement and actually come to the point of Krishna consciousness. I'm not sure how long you want me to speak for, but I shall. Maybe we can ask for questions then?
Yeah.
Any questions at all?
So one question for me.
Only one.
Thank you for one. So regarding brass deities, so how to polish them? Like what are the things allowed to use and what are the things not allowed to use?
Yeah. Well, you don't use a grinding machine or anything like that.
No.
That's a bit brutal. You can use tilak and lemon juice. Is one thing you can use. So usually you'll melt it in water, the tilak, and then take out the solid portion, add a bit of lemon juice to it, and what you do is you get cotton wool, you put it in, white tilak on it, and check it for stones, make sure there's no stones in it, and then you rub that on the. You have to rub quite firmly, yeah. So that's one thing you can do, and then after you do that, you'll pour some water to wash most of it off, get some cotton wool to take the rest off. Then that's the polishing part. Then once all the tilak's off, then you bathe the deities.
Yeah.
You can also use tamarind
Yeah.
and fuller's earth. But with tamarind, you have to be very attentive to remove it because it can leave all these swirly patterns on the deities.
Yeah.
And like if you have big deities, only do a small bit. You do one deity. Generally, I encourage the devotees to do one deity at a time, leave the other deity with the clothes on. You can use a thing called diatomaceous earth, which they use in London, which is quite effective. You can put you put lemon juice with it, just do it on its own.
We do it just with water.
Yeah, so you can mix it with water and make a paste.
What's that, Prabhu?
Diatomaceous earth, it's a naturally occurring clay. You can often find it in health food shops. Where do you get this stuff in London?
Amazon.
On Amazon. Okay, three-part Amazon.
So when we use lemon juice, when we mix lemon juice with tilaka, is it allowed to clean the eyes as well? Because we say if lemon juice goes into eyes, then
Yeah, so like it's just like when you're bathing children, right? Anyone who got kids? You got kids?
yes,
Right. So when you have toddlers, you're giving them a bath, and you're going to soak them up. What do you say to them? Close their eyes. Yeah, so you ask Krishna to close his eyes, but keep it out of the eyes as best you can. Yeah? And don't polish the paint because you're not going to make the paint any shinier.
Yeah.
All it'll do is when you rub it on the paint will come off.
paint comes out.
And you can use cotton buds around the eyes, here and above here. Because sometimes you see devotees will rub over the eyebrows and 2 weeks later the eyebrows are gone. So you don't want to do that. What else? Yes, diatomaceous earth, you can make a paste out of it. Diatomaceous earth, it takes a little bit of practice. Tilak is easy to use, but you've got to watch out for stones. But you can't buy tilak on Amazon, for instance. But you can buy diatomaceous earth, and it's very similar. There's another thing called fuller's earth, which is a fine type of potter's clay. I haven't been able to find that actually. I've tried some pottery shops and stuff, but at least in Australia I can't find it. I think it's available in the US. So there's different types of. The idea is a fine clay. And interestingly enough, this diatomaceous earth, that's what they put in toothpaste, and that's what makes your teeth shiny. Is this because it's very, very fine. Because all these things are abrasive, and it's just like when you polish metal, for instance. Like we had a devotee in a course we did in Radhagesh, and that he used to work as a metal polisher. And so when you polish metal, they have all these different grades of steel wool. Like I think it starts maybe 4 or 5 or something, and that's the coarse one that goes down like 3, 2, 1, 0, 00, 000, 000, quadruple 0, and that's a really fine one. So, but they're all abrasive. That's the idea. Or use a polishing rouge or something. It's all abrasive. But they're the types of things you can use for polishing deities. Is tilak and lemon juice, diatomaceous earth with water or juice, lemon juice, fuller's earth, or tamarind.
Yeah.
And I think in South India they use different things also, but that's more what they use in North India. Are you from South?
Yes.
Yeah. So what sort of things they use in South?
Most of the time tamarind.
Yeah.
We soak in the water for 10-15 minutes.
And take the seeds out and the skin.
And in Vrindavan we get that abhyanga
Yeah,
from the
Abhyanga
temple.
we get, yeah.
That's a paste.
The paste of chandan. So that we have been using.
Sandalwood
Now
paste we get in.
Some more things are there in that.
That's you mean the powder in the box?
Yeah.
That's it's more than likely not chandan.
Not chandan.
No, it's a paste.
It's paste, not
It's a
powder. It's
paste.
paste actually.
It's not powder.
Yeah, but it's more than likely not chandan.
Means I bought it from the temple.
So they have chandan.
How much does it weigh?
This much.
How much you pay for it?
100 grams.
I paid maybe 250 or something.
Yeah, not chandan. Not at that price. Chandan's about 12,000 to 18,000 rupees a kg. So if you pay 200 rupees for that, definitely not chandan. It's usually some other wood and they put a bit of fragrance with it, some chemical fragrance.
But it after washing with that particular paste, the deity shines.
Yeah.
It shines and it
it's shining for another 15 days.
I mean, but it's kind of helpful to understand what the ingredients are, because there's like one thing you get in South called Pitambari. But I've got no idea what it's made of.
No,
Yes, no, we are not
that's
using
purely
that.
made up of chemicals.
Yes, so it's chemical.
Pitambari maybe you can use for utensils, cleaning utensils.
Yes,
not for
only
utensils.
utensils. But
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's like I won't use things like Pitambari because I don't know what it's made from. You know, if it's just some chemical, I won't use it.
yes,
It's
Pitambari
always
is
a
full.
purely-
It's been hard. It's like.
It's here.
What's that?
It's very hard.
This is Pitambari.
The smell
Oh,
also.
Pitambari, I know. That's not quite common. But, But the types of things you use for polish, but you need to polish quite firmly and make sure you remove the polish.
Yeah.
Especially if you're using tamarind or lemon juice. Yeah. Well, the diatomaceous earth is not such a challenge, because the concern with tamarind and lemon juice is they're acidic. Therefore they're corrosive.
Citric acid.
So you need to make sure you remove that. But also, like, you look in the corners of their mouth and the corners of their eye, in between their fingers and stuff like that. There's places. That's why I use cotton wool after really wet cotton wool, just to clean out around the eyes, the mouth, the nose, all that. Also up in the nose, inside the ears, all these types of places where there's like crevices. Yeah. Well, I use wet cotton wool and really sort of dab the ears to try and like splash the water into the face and get all that out, and just make sure you use plenty of water when you're bathing, so that the acidic, if you're using something acidic, so that's removed.
So is that DT made up of brass, or when we bought our DTs from Vrindavan, the shopkeeper told us that these are made up of 8 different metals. Ashtadhatu, he said. So we didn't do much research, but when I heard you said brass, then
I almost guarantee they were brass, and probably not a very high quality brass.
yeah.
I mean, Ashtadhatu. My understanding of Ashtadhatu, I mean, I can't remember all the metals, but there's gold, silver, brass, copper, etc. like that. The thing is, it's like gold and silver have a much lower melting point than brass. So what happens is like, even they might use gold, which they probably don't because it's very expensive. But even if they use gold and they try to mix it in there, it evaporates. Because its temperature, where it turns into vapor, is much lower than the melting point of brass. There is an alchemical process for doing it, but these days people don't know that process. So even though they may say, all they're trying to do is squeeze more money out of you. That's, lawyers are. It's not like you're dealing with advanced Vaishnavas or anything like that. They're all just trying to squeeze money out of you. So they'll tell you anything so they can charge a higher price. But they're brass. Like if you look at, for instance, the Panchatattva in Mayapur, you can see that Nityananda's a bit sort of more orangey coloured. There's a bit more copper in him than there is in the other deities. So they tried to do the Ashtadhatu, but the gold and silver just evaporate because they're soft metals.
We do like DT bathing every Ekadashi to Ekadashi. Is that okay?
I mean, if it's what you can manage, then it's what you can manage. But ideally, you would do it every day and polish them once a week or once a fortnight.
Means we do DT bathing plus polishing.
But see, every day, all you need to do is just like a few conscious, undress them, right? A few conscious of water, dry them, put their clothes back on. You can literally do it as fast as I said it. It doesn't take much. But you bathe every day?
No, I go office.
No, but you bathe every day.
Yeah, I do.
So why Krishna not bathing every day? Actually, I know some devotee who was born in a place south of here called Scunthorpe, and like they used to have a weekly bath, and every week they'd all, like, that was like when I was a kid, it was like that too. But every week they'd all round up and they'd all bathe in this, one after the other in the same bath water. So the first one got clean, the last one came out dirty, and then when he went in, so Krishna bathes every day. And interesting enough, this is a point I often like to share. In the the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is one of our primary scriptures, and actually it's considered in this age of Kali, this is a very, very important scripture. There's a chapter in the 11th canto, 27th chapter, Krishna's instructions on deity worship, Uddhava. So he's instructing Uddhava all about deity worship. And he says, actually, in Kali Yuga, in my deity form, there are two types of services I like the most, bathing and decorating. So if you know that Krishna likes that the most, doesn't that encourage you to do it every day? But just do it quickly. You don't have to do a big elaborate thing. Just make the bathing water nice room, nice warm temperature. Put some flowers in it or some fragrant oils or something like that, and just bathe them, and then dry them and put the clothes on. That's all you have to do. And then once a fortnight or once a week, you can do a bit more elaborate. You can do it with with polish with tilak, and then put jewelry on and all that sort of stuff, or whatever you use for polishing. Yeah? Yeah. Pretty simple. Don't make it complicated. Keep it simple. Because the more complicated you make it, the more difficult it becomes to maintain it. And then what will happen, we'll get to the point where you give it up because it's too complicated. Keep it simple. Yeah. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
Prabhuji, how, because I'm talking very frankly about this. We have our deity since 2011. As per Grihasthas, kids grown up. So the mood when we bought the deities, how enthusiastic we were earlier. So the mood is not the same. It's just up sometimes.
That's normal. That's normal.
So means how to set up that mood and how to pray to the deities.
This is the most important thing in your life.
So
right?
means it happens sometimes that this is to be done, that is to be done, that is to be done, and this. So it's like getting up more and more and more.
But you know what that is?
So how do I pray to my deity?
But you know what that is? It's the mode of passion. The mode of passion is taking over. So when you sit when you sit down in the morning, or whatever time of day it is you do, sit down and focus on your japa. Try to bring the mind back to the holy name, and this will help to quell the mode of passion. Because this has to be done, that has to be done. That's just passion. All this activity, that's just passion, and we need to, as best we can, avoid becoming overwhelmed by the modes of nature. Because passion, we know where passion leads. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, it ends in distress. So we don't want to go down that path. So by and this is like an important point. Is deity worship is not actually the process of this age, but deity worship is a very powerful aid to chanting because it helps us become purified. It helps to cleanse our consciousness. And very, very powerful because you're touching Krishna. You're eating Krishna prasad. Very, very powerful way of becoming purified. The main focus, or the Yuga Dharma, is chanting Hare Krishna. So even with deity worship, when we're bathing the deity, we chant Hare Krishna. When we're offering bhog, we chant Hare Krishna. Whatever, we chant Hare Krishna. Make your focus in life chanting the holy name. Then the other things will become easier. Take time, but the other things will become easier if you focus on chanting. But if you're trying to get all these things done, and oftentimes the important thing is not pushed aside. Just like I was sharing with Dr. Prabhupada Prabhupada the other day about the pandemic, my experience of the pandemic in Australia. I don't know how many of you follow the news, but Australia, like 200 years ago, was a penal colony. Right? So we reverted to being a penal colony during the pandemic. No one could go anywhere. You couldn't go in or out of the country. You couldn't even go 5 kilometers from your home. It was really tight, sharp, like a drum. But what was the point? Oh, that's right. Yeah, it's like you got to understand what's important in life. You got to try to identify what's important in life and make sure you get those things done. Because what was happening in Australia during the pandemic is they said, okay, only essential services can stay open. Hospitals, supermarkets, chemists, doctors' surgeries, and bottle shops. You know, the place where they buy alcohol. And non-essential services closed. Places of worship, churches, temples, all closed. So the priorities are wrong. And so they discovered during the pandemic, suicide went up, domestic violence went up, mental illness went up. Why? Because they're neglecting the most important things. They're neglecting the self. They're just dealing with the body and neglecting the self. So it's just like there's a well-known, well, I don't know how well-known he is, but there was a well-known, you know, these guys who do seminars for, you know, productivity and you know, all this stuff, time management, all that sort of stuff. There's this one fellow called Stephen Covey, and he had this really interesting exercise, right? You had a jar, right? And you had stones, gravel, sand, water. See how much you can get into the jar. So some people put the sand in first and fill up, and then they can put anything else in. Some people put the water in first, and you know. So what it's showing is that you take the big things, the important things, you put them in first. They're the stones. Then you put the gravel in, you shake it down. You put more gravel, you shake it down. You can put it. Then you put some sand in, you shake that down, and then you can put water in as well. So if you make sure you get the important things done first, then what you'll find is all the other things will just fall into place. So identify what's important in your life. Caring for the deities, chanting your japa, taking care of your health, taking care of your children. These are all important things. And probably the children is the most important thing. Because I just had some experiences lately of dealing with devotees who grew up in devotee families and were neglected as children. And so what's happened as a result is they have various mental imbalances because they didn't have a stable and nurturing family life. And this is one thing that I find, you know, especially in more traditional families in India. Not now. Modern Indian families are not much different from Western families. Like you go to Mumbai or places like this, practically no different. But you'll see, like in traditional families, the family unit is very strong, and the children grow up in a very nurturing. They feel loved. But you'll see, like you just, you know, in a place like Glasgow. I mean, you know, we're out on Harry-Nunn the other day, and look at all these football kind of, you know, Celtic and the Rangers, you know, type of people coming, and they're like, you know, they're not well balanced people. They've got issues, and I'm sure that, you know, if you were to analyse these people, you'd be able to trace it back to their childhood and the fact that they had a home life that wasn't nurturing for them. So it's really important that you don't neglect the children in the name of devotional service, because Prabhupada told one disciple she had a child and she really liked doing deity worship, but she didn't want to look after the child. And Prabhupada said, no, your children are your deities. And he said to her, and if you can't look after the boy, send him to me and I'll look after him. Because Prabhupada was making the point that it's very, very important to ensure that the children grow up in a loving, nurturing environment. And that way, they'll become self-conscious. So you don't neglect the important things. The other things, you just do the things you can. They'll fall in place. Does that answer your question? I know it's kind of like a long-winded answer, but it's an important topic. But don't allow yourself to get the mode of passion. You have to try to avoid that. Yes, what? On the altar. No. Pretty didn't bring your wife. Yeah. She could bring a book and sign you all up for doing service. There's so many things you can do. You know, you can help in the kitchen, you can cut up vegetables, you can wash pots, you can clean the kitchen. You know, you can make garlands, you can clean the deity's paraphernalia, you can sort out the, you know, you've been in the kitchen at the Lesmahigo temple? So just off to the side there's the room where they keep all the jewelry. And there's so many drawers of jewelry that need to be, the drawers need to be cleaned, the jewelry needs to be tidied and put in tight, sorted out. There's enough service there to keep you busy for the rest of your life, without even being a brahmana. Because the thing is, like, Prabhupada made this point, it's like, if we all focus our activities around the temple deities, he said, then this Krishna conscious movement will push on nicely. This Krishna conscious, he said pull on nicely, not push on, pull on nicely. This Krishna conscious movement is meant to save the world. So if we all work together to push on Krishna, just like we're having this program here, why? To encourage others in Krishna consciousness. So if we all work together in the activities of Krishna consciousness, especially in the activities of this mission of Srila Prabhupada and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, then so many people will benefit. But if you're just doing deity worship at home, how many people benefit from that? You benefit, your family benefits, the neighbors will get some benefit because the deities are there and things like that. But it's limited. But through the preaching mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the whole, sometimes Prabhupada would say, one time there was a lecture I was listening to, he's saying the whole world is his name, the whole universe benefits from the activities of this Sankirtan movement. So that's why it's really important for all of us, according to capacity, to get involved in the Sankirtan mission and help to push on the Sankirtan mission, because so many people will benefit. On our own, we can only do a small amount, but all together, it's just like Prabhupada sometimes will give the example of a bunch of sticks. The sticks are all bunched up. Even though, we can break them very easily on their own, but all together, very hard to break. So if we all cooperatively work together to push on this Krishna consciousness, it's very powerful. But when there's dissension, then there's Bahu Shakiham Dasha, we become many branched and we don't achieve much. If we have Eke He Kurunandana, this one point of attention, then we can achieve much more. Okay? But if you have an altar at home, but just have pictures.
I have Laddu Gopal,
Okay.
but I don't have Gaurnita or Jagannath.
But just have a picture of Lord Chaitanya.
Yeah.
A picture of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Nityananda. But just, you have Ladu look after him, bathe him regularly and polish him like that, feed him, make sure he doesn't go hungry. Yeah? He likes Ladu, so make sure you feed him.
So I was thinking whether I should get the deities or not.
I don't encourage people to have deities at home. If you have them, look after them, but you don't need any more. Just better have a picture of them. That's what Prabhupada wanted us to do. And he wanted us to work together to spread the activity of Krishna consciousness. Already, just to maintain your family takes so much time and effort, and I'm sure you're all experiencing it's becoming more difficult, Cost of living is just going through the roof. The price of energy, the price of gas and fuel and all that sort of stuff, for your car, the price of Volga. It's gone up, I think, 30% in Australia just in the last few months. We're on the other side of the planet. We're still, having these concerns. So, don't get too caught up in things like that. Keep it simple. Just so you can focus on giving Krishna consciousness to others. Because this is actually the most pleasing thing you can do. I was reading a purport last night. The Prabhupada, this is the pastime of Haridas Thakur. And Thakur Haridas, actually Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was sharing his anxiety with Thakur Haridas about how much anxiety he feels for all the Yavanas and Malechas, how they're suffering in this material world, and how are they going to come to Krishna consciousness. So Thakur Haridas was saying, don't worry, my Lord, but through this chanting of Hare Krishna, that they'll become delivered. And then Prabhupada, in his purport, was making the point of how we become dear to Krishna is by taking on this anxiety of Lord Chaitanya, by freeing him from this anxiety. And the way to free him from this anxiety is to dedicate our lives to propagating Krishna consciousness. So by, it's nice to do deity worship, but don't make that the whole purpose of your life. The whole goal of your life is doing deity worship. Make your real purpose is giving Krishna consciousness to others, because then this will relieve Chaitanya Mahaprabhu of his anxiety, and then you'll become truly dear to Lord Chaitanya. Okay? I'm really amazed was that first one I'm doing last night. And so I was talking about how to, the anxiety checking my good feels and how to become dear. Anything else? Yes,
when we oil the Saridamson and then we bathe him, and then the water is kind of charnamel, so what's it do? Because sometimes our face is getting oily, so is it good for us to drink it or?
Depends what quality of oil you use. If you use a good quality of oil, yeah, it's fine. But you know, you can get there's a number of companies like you don't necessarily need to get Indian oil. Although my experience with Indian oils is they tend to be more fragrant than Western oils. They use a different process. Many Indian oils are chemical. Mostly. But you can get a few good oils like there is one. There's one place in India. In most of the major cities in India, you'll find this place called the Karnataka State Emporium. You've been there?
Which one?
You know Karnataka.
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 Yeah.
Right, so they have a state emporium, right, which is, like, if you go to Connaught Place, there's all these state emporiums there, so also you have the Karnataka State Emporium there. And they sell this really high quality sandalwood oil, but it's really expensive. It's like, a little bottle like this. The last time I bought it was like 2,000 rupees. It's probably gone up a lot since then. There's also online there's Eden Botanicals, and there's also another place called Saud, very expensive. Or if you're flying to India and you go through the Middle East, through Dubai, there's quite a few shops in Dubai that sell really good quality oils. But in India, you've really got to know where to look. You've got to know how to pick oils because most of it's rubbish. And it's chemicals. But if you get natural oils, especially things like Kush, whatever you want to call it, sandalwood, Pura, these are all digestible.
What about coconut oil, Prabhu?
You can use coconut oil, but generally coconut oil is kind of hard to remove, especially in cold weather. It goes
Sticky.
So I generally wouldn't use that for these. Also, there's a place near Vrindavan called Aligarh, and you get probably the best rose oil in the world, in my opinion, comes from Aligarh. Really, really high quality oil. And one way you can test if the rose oil is good quality, if you stick it in the fridge and it coagulates, that tells you it's good quality rose oil. Yeah? But if it doesn't coagulate, it's usually just not very good. But around Aligarh, you get really, really good quality rose oil. So you can definitely drink the chana with that. But don't use too much. You only use a small amount. And you rub it on the deity very quickly. Don't take too long. Because the bathing dressing shouldn't take long. Prabhupada said in a lecture we were listening to a while ago, he said, they were asking, that's right, it wasn't a lecture. Were you saying this? Someone was saying the other day that Prabhupada, like he was looking at his watch, and the darshan was like 30 seconds late, and he's saying it's so difficult to be a Brahmin in Kali Yuga. And then one of the devotees who was standing there said, well, how long should it take to Prabhupada? And he said, half an hour maximum. And they were like flabbergasted because none of them could do it in half an hour. But then one time Prabhupada told Jamuna how long it should take. I think he said an hour. And Jamuna said, not possible. So Prabhupada sat down and did it. Decoration, everything. In less than an hour. So it's possible. You just have to not get too caught up in all the little bits and pieces.
And bro, while reading, so what kind of mantras you can chant, like Brahma Samhita whole or just?
Hare Krishna. This is the best mantra. Yeah. You can chant other stotras and things like that. Brahma Samhita also you can chant. But if you don't know other mantras, just chant Hare Krishna. You can chant Grihastha, you can chant Guru Bandhana, you can chant Gurudev Kripabindudeya. You can chant, whatever praise you like, Some devotees like the, what do they call it, the Nrishma Kavaca. Well, if you're not Radha Krishna, not really appropriate prayer to be chanting. You can chant some Krishna mantra or something like that. But just the best mantra is Hare Krishna. Anything else?
Sometimes my daughter she's 10 years old, so she also wants to dress Deity. So I allow her to.
You really have to look at the nature of the child, because I remember having years ago. I had this experience with a young girl. She had a lot of alcohol, and you know, I like to encourage the kids, and so I just sat down next to her and started to ask her about her duty, and how she would serve him and things like that. And she was telling me some of the things about the duty and what she was doing, and then she said, but sometimes he's really naughty. And I was intrigued. I was definitely intrigued when she said that. I said, what do you mean by he's really naughty? He likes to play in the mud. So you don't understand what's happening. She plays with her deity in the mud. So the thing is, like, she sees the deity as a toy. So you need to, and this is one of the problems that happens when you give children these Krishna dolls, is they see the deity as a toy, or they see the doll as a toy. It's a representation, it's a form of Krishna, and they throw this doll of Krishna in their toy basket and put the other things on top of it. So you really need to see the mentality of the child. Generally, Prabhupada wouldn't encourage devotees to allow children under 12 years old, because that's when they're starting to kind of get their head together around this kind of stuff. But when they're younger than that, they just don't see the nature of the deity. Of course, we can see, like with Uddhava, Parikshit, and even Srila Prabhupada himself, they came from very different backgrounds. There's a story in the beginning of the third canto where Uddhava was, what was he doing? Yeah, he used to, in his childhood play, he would, Prabhupada calls them dolls, but as far as I can figure out, they were deities. He had deities of Krishna, and his mother would call him to come for lunch or whatever, for prasad, but he said, no, I can't come, the deities eating right now, I have to wait till the offering's finished. So he was so, obviously because he comes in a great Vaishnava family, he's so elevated in his consciousness that he sees the deity as directly Krishna. Do our children see the deity like that? Probably not. So you really have to be careful with that, because one of the things that can happen, I'm not saying it will happen, one of the things that can happen is you make a really unhealthy impression upon the child about the deity. They think the deity is their friend, they think the deity is a plaything, they think whatever. But really important for us at our stage in devotional service is to make this impression of like the deity is the Supreme Personality, I am his eternal servant. And you need to see the differentiation. But children, generally young children, can't get that. They don't get that kind of concept. You need to be careful. But you know the child, you know the nature of your child, so if you can see the child's kind of evolved sufficiently and will take it very seriously, then the Prabhupada would generally encourage them, teach them to bow down, teach them how to clean the arti paraphrase, teach them how to make garlands, all these types of things, which is what we do. Like Merle and I have been working on a book for the deity worship in London. We have one section which is the pathway to service, and in the pathway to service, even with adults, we're teaching them how to wash paraphernalia, we're teaching them to bow down, we're teaching them how to make garlands, we're teaching them how to cut vegetables. So it's the same thing, just do it with children. So when they get to the point of worshipping the deity, they know what it means to be clean. They know how to set up an arti tray, they know how to make a garland, they know how to do everything. Something else?
I'll ask one question. So, from couple of days, I pray means when I'm studying or when I'm doing something, I keep saying Hare Krishna, and I don't have deity at home because my room is not that. It's very
small.
Yeah, so I just shifted from student accommodation to a flat where I got, and the room is not that. I got so much stuff. When I was in student accommodation, I didn't realize that I should not be buying so many stuff. But in story,
we were just talking about that on the way here. Actually, like people have these tiny little apartments, and there's so much stuff, you almost can't open the door to get inside.
Yeah, so I mean that's actually a condition right now,
Yeah.
and half of the stuff, my stuff, is at my friend's place because my room is so much filled up with the stuff. So, but when I was back in India, I had deities, and my father is a proper follower of Krishna, father and mother. So every week they used to go to Vrindavan. We have a very nice place in Vrindavan. But over here, I try to continue praying, but you know, to sit properly and to chant, even for 5 minutes, I go to reflection room and I try to do that. But
Go to what?
a reflection room. So reflection rooms are the places of the meditation places that a university and many offices have now. So you can go for 5-10 minutes and you can just meditate, do your chantings, relax, and then come back and start working. So I mean that is really nice. But for 5 minutes also, like nowadays, just because my process is not being regular, it's going like this. So like the way you just explained to her, that was so nice, and I was like, oh, this was the kind of question that I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But there's different stages of devotional service.
Yeah.
I don't remember all the stages. I think Merlin knows most of the stages. It starts off with Adosha Grihastha, so you start off with some faith, you associate with devotees, and then you grow in devotional service through practice. But in the beginning stages, that there's a stage where it's sort of, there's sometimes hot, sometimes cold, sometimes thick, sometimes thin. So it sounds like you could be going through a stage similar to that. So the idea is to try to put yourself in a situation that is favourable for your practice of bhakti. Just like, because Merli Prabhu and I have been travelling together since the start of September. So we've been doing it for years, so we know each other quite well. Merli Prabhu, when it's time for him to chant, he'll go somewhere where he's not going to be disturbed. He'll turn off his phone and just sit there and chant. Me, I like to find a place where I can pace up and down. My hips and knees just won't allow me to sit down. I used to sit down, but now I just pace. And I need to find a place where it's a defined space. If I'm out in the wide open spaces, my mind just goes everywhere. So I've determined what works for me. You make it like hot water. Okay? So I've determined what works for me. And so that's what you need to find. You need to find that situation that's favourable for you to practice devotional service.
I just want to be in that state that when I'm working, but when I'm every day, I'm doing 20 minutes, I just want to switch off that button. Yeah, I just want. Yeah, and I give 10 minutes, 5 minutes, but still I'm not able to completely devote myself. I want just some kind of a switch in my mind, like a turn it off and turn it on. So that was I was thinking of how I can achieve that. But I just can't practice it. Yeah.
Turn the phone off. Turn all these other things off, whatever it is that you're distracted on, and just do it every day. Make time. And you'll also find it helpful is if you make it at the same time every day, because it's just like there was an experiment we learned about at school called Pavlov's dog. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, I've read about it.
Yeah. So it was really interesting because there was this scientist. He was talking about conditioned reflex.
Yes.
And so what he did is he had this number of dogs. Some of the things he did were pretty cool. But one of the things he did, which was really interesting, is using food. And what he'd do is he'd feed the dog at the same time every day. And then he'd blow a whistle.
Yeah,
right? And so what had happened is by feeding the dog at the same time becomes habitual, it becomes a conditioned reflex. And then what would happen after a while is he'd blow the whistle before, and the dog would start salivating, even though there was no food, because he became conditioned to the idea of there being food associated with whistle. So then, with us, it's the same thing. It's just like if you want to learn mantras, for instance. Right? I learned the Brahma Samhita, I think it was 6 days. It's a lot of prayers. It's like 30 or 40 prayers. I learned it in 6 days because I did it at the same time every day. And so then what happens is your mind becomes conditioned, it becomes receptive. The same like if you want to have good digestion, eat at the same time every day. And then the juices in your body become accustomed to it. Krishna says, Yukta hara vihara sha yukta chaita sakama so yukta swapna bodha sha yoga bhava dukkha. There's someone who's regulating their habits of eating, sleeping, recreation, work. can mitigate all material pangs, not pangs is what you do in a car, by practicing the yoga system. Yeah. So by setting aside that time every day, however much works for you, just make sure you set aside that time, and you'll find, by and large, that you'll be able to become more focused at that time. But if it's just whenever you can squeeze in a few minutes,
Yeah, that is.
and that's one of the things I really appreciate about being with Mali Mahaprabhu. He's very regulated like that. And like sometimes due to the nature of my service, I become unregulated. So for me to have the opportunity to associate with somebody who is regulated, it's very helpful. So also the same thing is by having friendships with persons who are they're living the life you want to live. If you associate with people who are just all over the place, that's what you become like. If you associate with people who are devoted to Krishna and regulated their lives, you'll become like that. Association is very powerful.
Yeah, I keep going to ISKCON, I keep going to Leslie, keep going meeting Georgie and everyone.
Yeah, come here, associate with those here, and do those things. You'll find it very, very helpful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I'm a doctor to Prabhu, and so I just make sure that I'm eating proper.
Well, you've got all sorts of qualifications.
So I first did medical allopathic. I'm a doctor in India, and after that.
And then you see, like as a doctor, what do? When you're learning, you associate with those types of people, and you learn. But if you're trying to be a doctor and you didn't have that association, it would be more difficult for you.
Absolutely. So I mean, I keep telling people that you need to eat vegetarian, vegan food, because the more lighter food you eat, that's how your thought process becomes. So I mean, this is what most of my friends have left non-veg because I keep telling them.
But Lord Chaitanya explains in the Chaitanya Charanamrita, he says, Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha, Sava Shastra Koi, Lava Mata Sadhu Sangha, Sava Siddhavai. If anyone here is Bengali, I'm very sorry for my pronunciation. But basically what he's explaining is Sadhu Sangha, Sadhu Sangha. Associate with devotees, associate with devotees. It's the conclusion of all the Sangha Shastra Koi, it's the conclusion of all the revealed scriptures that you'll attain all perfection through this association. So if you want to be a devotee of Krishna, associate with devotees of Krishna. If you want to be a meat eater, then associate with meat. If you want to be a drunkard, associate with drunkards.
Yeah, I mean your tribe describes you. Your vibe actually describes your tribe. So when you have to upgrade your vibe, upgrade your aura and your thought process, so you attract the same people.
Yeah. Very important.
Absolutely.
Keep going.
Keep going.
Keep going. Keep going. And just try to make that time every day.
Yeah.
Where you just turn off all distractions.
You've told me such a great thing. I mean, I'm just going to keep that, put an alarm for that, and every time, no matter what, I go and I just pray for those training.
It's like I have it for my midday Gayatri. That's the one I miss the most. So what I do is I have an alarm that goes on at midday. And check that.
So
So I just have to do it. And it's like, Merle was the head pujari in London for 21 years. And oftentimes he's dressing in the morning, which usually goes from 5 o'clock through till 7 o'clock. And that's the time that devotees are generally chanting japa. So then after that, they start to get into activities. So, oftentimes, I've done the same myself when I've been doing deity worship regularly. It's like, you do your service, go to class, take breakfast, then go find somewhere where you can be undisturbed and chant. And you just have to regulate yourself. You have to force yourself into regulation, because there's so many things in this world that are vying for our attention, so many distractions, and you just have to shut it out. Just, okay, for this period of time, none of this stuff.
practice proper.
Except when my wife calls, then I answer the phone. Anyone else, I just shut it out.
But detachment is very important. Detachment is very important.
Yeah, you have to follow. That's
Krishna that says.
Okay. Thank you very much. Very nice to have the opportunity to come here and spend some time with you all.
I'd still like one point.
Yes, please.
Which may help, I imagine, is when people ask me that question, I say, what are you doing at 8 o'clock? What are you doing at 8 p.m.? Whatever you're doing at 8 p.m. is important. And if it's not important, whatever it is that you're doing, then that's the time you should be looking to go to bed. And the earlier you can get to bed, then everything else will fall in place after that. You'll be able to get up early. And I always found when I first became a devotee, the main obstacle was getting up early. If I could get up early, that time before the sun rises is a special time. Especially when the mind is very calm, you can absorb, and then you can build up your psychic shields so that when you go throughout the day you can deflect negative energy by dissociation, psychic vampires that like to come and just suck everything out of you. You can deflect all that. But the crucial point is, what do you do at 8 p.m.? What are you doing at that time? Is it essential? Or can you just clear it away, get into bed? Maybe I don't get to bed till 9, but I'm just winding things up now, telling things up, putting things away.
Even my little alarm went off a few minutes ago. Actually, 17 minutes ago. Start getting ready for bed.
I get up at 5 because I have to go to gym, and my life starts maximum by 6. I have to start work.
What are you doing
6
at 8 p.m.?
8 p.m. 8 p.m. I'm almost like dead. I want to sleep.
But if you can try to chant before you go to the gym,
I'll do that.
that would be helpful. Early to bed, early to rise, makes the body healthy, wealthy, and wise. Okay. Thank you very much for that nice point.
Yeah. So election Mahamantra to again say thank you to Prabhu and for
You got anything to say, brother?
I mean, the one thing I would say to him was question that to become Krishna conscious, we have to put, to become really Krishna conscious, we need to put quality time. So we need to choose an occupation, choose a lifestyle that's not going to compromise our spiritual practices.
Right.
So, for instance, if you're offered a job, even though the pay may be up there, but it means you're going to be unregulated, you're not going to have quality time. You've got to think of your principles in life and what's important. So perhaps you need to map out the type of job you have and the hours you have, so it becomes more steady and more practical for you to practice spiritual life. You've got this job, that job, this study, and you keep taking all these things on. It's going to be very difficult for you to have some quality time with the Holy Name.
That's why when I completed my medical studies, Prabhu, I always wanted to become a medical negligence lawyer and personal injury lawyer. So I thought, I saw my mom, my mother is a criminal lawyer in Supreme Court in India. So I saw her that, okay, she's amazing lawyer, but what is needed, it's also needed to be a doctor, because when there's some injuries cases used to come, or murder case or anything, so it's very difficult for lawyers, for just lawyers who don't know the human body, that how human body functions, and if there's some kind of a heinous case, so how things are happening in body, if there's some knife stabbing. So I did forensics also, and those courses also. And then I did my law, one degree in India, LLM degree in India, one master's degree, master's level in Glasgow. So that how I can be best in mind, how I can serve people around in the best. So that's why I choose this path since I was in 10th grade.
Yeah, so you kind of planned out your life.
Yeah, I planned
so
it.
my life's quite hectic now.
Yeah.
I want to get to this point where I've got a career, where I've got quality time in the morning.
Yes.
So it might take map out, it might take a year to get there.
But it's obvious you have an intention or a desire to want to help people.
Yeah.
But the best thing you can do to help people is to give them Krishna.
Krishna.
But you can't give them what you don't have.
Right.
So like Murli Manohar was saying, it's like you map your life out in a way so you can get Krishna,
Right.
and then you can give that to others.
That's such a nice advice. Really amazing. But you have actually motivated more to go and read Bhagavad Gita.
You got to have Krishna before you give Krishna.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you all very much for Prabhupada. Celebrate the Bhaktivinoda King. Jai Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
and the last announcement maybe. And if you want to increase your, not increase, I would say, strengthen your japa, please tune on 7 p.m. Thursday evening by His Grace, Dr. Prabhu. Japa Sangha. Every Thursday, 7 to 8 p.m.
Yeah, the more they come to the Japa Sangha, then the more we can share.